Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now, if a lot of you guys remember, about 10 months ago for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, I made a video that was talking about everything that I wanted to pull for over the course of the following 10 months or so when it came to looking at what JP had, kind of having the foresight to know what sort of things were coming and planning my pulls around those things and what was high in tier list, what was being used heavily at the time. Well, now we're at the point where we've passed that point in the global version that we'd hit when it came to the JP version at the video from the video at that time, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to make another one. So I sat there and I did a lot of research and sort of went across discussions with various members of the community. We had some fantastic streams over the course of the last few days as well, where we've all been talking about this, as well as cross-referencing it with places like Ultima, commonly used characters and dimensions, and all sorts of cool things to try and make another version of my future pulls video. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, it's going to be a long old ride, but hopefully it will give both me and the rest of you guys watching the video a bit of insight as to what we can expect from Opera Omnia pretty much for the rest of the year. So if that's something you want to stick around and have a look at, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer before we get started, and I will go over what resource and everything I currently have just to give you guys a good map of how I'm planning this from in a little while. But bear in mind that this video is how I personally plan to pull my pulls for the next X months, and it's not necessarily how I think everybody should pull. However, I will be trying to give advice on what I feel is good for the community at large when it comes to these pulls, so that you guys can have a little bit of a wayfinder when it comes to navigating through all these banners, all these things. But one of the things that's most important with this is the use of ingots and books and things like that to realize your EX weapons and give the purple status to them as well. So bear in mind that basically I've worked out on average we get about 10 nuggets and 6 books, well, and the nuggets come from those books as well, per month, because we get 2 events a week, roughly, and 2 chocoboards a month, roughly. So basically the way I've worked it out is you get 3 purple weapons per month, on average, at a minimum. So that's how I've planned these pulls in advance. Obviously, there are going to be sort of events where we get slightly more than that, or I'd at least hope so, or there are going to be people who have bought ingot bundles and things like that. So do bear that in mind as well when going into it. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to round it out with roughly 3 characters a month, with some honorable mentions and some bits that I would like to put some of my ingots into as well, so that you guys can plan your pulls around where you want to spend your ingots, because there's no point in pulling for a character if you don't plan to use them to their full capacity. So as you can see on the left hand side here, I'm showing you this is my game at the moment, and I currently have 69 EXs, which is an awful lot, and I'm basically showing you all of these EXs so that I can give you an impression of the ones that I want to avoid pulling on if they necessarily have like a second part to the banner. So for example, like Leon, I have no reason to pull for him again when his EX Plus comes around. Paladin Cecil, I have no reason to pull for. You know, there's a lot of characters, Vayne, Noel, there's plenty of characters there that I could like get away with not having to pull on certain banners. In terms of ingots and books, as you can see, I don't have a huge amount of them. I have enough to do a character purple right now, but I'm obviously saving that for the next month. And then lastly, I shall show you my actual in-game resources, and as you can see, I currently have 343,000 gems as well as 868 tickets, which is a pretty large amount by and large, but I have also cleared pretty much everything there is to do in the game. I've farmed all my summon boards, this, that, and the other. So basically I am relying now on new content to provide me with new resources. So do bear that in mind as we go into some of these banners in the future. Last thing before we start on the banners, I absolutely promise, is to ask you to make sure to not forget to have a look at the social media links down below, including my Twitter, my Twitch, my Discord. My Twitch was actually where we discussed a lot of these banners coming up, and it was a really fantastic stream, and I thank you, all of you that showed up for that. And of course, to not forget to have a look at my Patreon page as well, which has been absolutely fantastic these past weeks. I'm so thankful, particularly in these trying times with isolation and all of that. It's been really, really encouraging to see so many of you jumping onto Patreon. And as always with my Patreon, I shout out a random patron every time I release a video, and this time around that's going to be Resfoina. Now, Res is actually a content creator for Opera Omnia herself, so I would definitely encourage you to go and check her channels out as well. Okay, so let's get started here. So as you can see, we are at this particular point when it comes to the banner. So as of this point in time, this is where the video starts. So obviously if you're coming into watching this video later, then you may want to skip ahead a little bit depending on how far along the timeline you actually are. And I'm also basing where these characters are in the timeline based on Vash 1306's Opera Omnia Global Visual Forecast, which I will also leave a link in the description box if you want to check that out. But the next couple of banners we've got here are the Cerberus Raid, which is going to include Papalimo and Seymour, and then Cid and Quistis. Now, I actually already covered Papalimo and Seymour in my most recent video, and I don't think that this is a particularly great banner purely because of the stuff that's coming out in April. Now, if we go up a little bit, you're going to see what I mean. Now, this first banner here, with Vayne and Cecil in it, is absolutely godlike. I actually don't have to pull on this banner because I already own both Vayne and Cecil's EX weapons already. So for me, it's just a case of EX realizations. But I will be purpling Vayne instantaneously. And that is not just because he's my favourite character in the game, but because he's absolutely bonkers insane. And having him and Aranea in a party, or him and Leo in a party, or Leo and Aranea in a party, any combination of those two is going to absolutely wreck face. And Vayne's just, his mechanics are really strong. He doesn't, he gets his unbreak on his EX as well as his force of will attacks. He's just an exceptional character. But everyone kind of knows that Vayne's really powerful. The character I really want to talk about is actually Cecil. I think he's one of the most underrated characters of this period of time within the timeline. He's got Holy Enchant, he's got Imperils, he's got batteries, he's got auras, he's got like buffs out of his ass. He's actually an extremely strong character, but he kind of falls to the wayside, kind of similar to Papalimo, just because of the characters around him. And like, I mean, Beatrix is a character that everyone, including myself, is looking forward to see her come back. But you're gonna actually be very surprised to hear me say this, but Beatrix is probably one of the lesser banners this month, or for April, because while Beatrix is really good, I know it's heresy for me to say that, considering Beatrix is FF9, you know, if I have a waifu in Final Fantasy, it's her. And I love her, but equally, Steiner is very underwhelming. He just doesn't really do a lot. He's only as okay as every other EX, but realistically, you have to spread your resources out. And if you're going in for Beatrix, if you get Steiner along the way, great. But I don't see you purpling Steiner anytime soon. Beatrix I will purple because she's a favourite character, but she's probably not my first recommendation. Now, I think that this banner here, with Selphie, Noctis and Lise, I think is unlikely for us to get. I think if we do get it, it will be different, because I think what will happen is that Selphie won't come back with her EX realization alongside the second part of the Spring Festival. Whether the banner stays the same or not, I'm not sure. Now, I will try and point out banners over here that I don't think we're going to get from the JP version, but obviously do bear in mind that I may well get that wrong. Selphie's a character I won't be. I mean, I already have her EX again, but I wouldn't purple her because her HP damage is absolutely terrible. She has no brave shaving capabilities, and her aura is a deliciously fun EX to use, but I just wouldn't. There's very few situations where I would bring her for anything but her aura buff, and realistically you could replace her with any third character with an EX that's more like kind of pushing forward a lot more than aura does. But it is quite, I mean, it's good fun, so I wouldn't blame you for purpling her, but I won't be. This banner, I'm not sure if we'll get it, because this comes back with this was part of the Phoenix raid that they had, which was where Selphie came in, whereas I'm not sure that we're going to get that. We're going to get, obviously, the Spring Festival instead, so I'm not sure we're going to get this banner with Rosa, Agrius, and Barret. But even if we did, Rosa and Agrius are good, but there are characters that are coming out that kind of beat them, so I wouldn't stress too much if we don't get it. This next banner, however, absolute must pull. Absolutely going to get tickets, could potentially get gems for me. I'm actually trying my absolute hardest, as you can probably tell, to save as many gems as I can for when the burst era comes around in about August, because I think that it's going to be really important to have those gems for that time. But in the meantime, Leo and Galoof are both exceptionally good characters. Galoof is a tank that works brilliantly even with other tanks, because he's like a cover-based tank and a counter-based tank. So if you take Zac and Galoof with you, and then Zac draws everything to himself, and then Galoof is covering him, you aren't taking damage. And you're like doling out counters from Galoof all the time. His EX is actually very powerful, but honestly, they are as good a prize as each other. Leo is still a really good character, and honestly, people are under the misconception that if you have Aranea, you don't have to pull for Leo. Why would you not use both? Like, really? Why would you not use both of them? Leo is an extraordinary character. He has fantastic delay capabilities. One of his attacks, Master Blade, is a multi-hitting move, which means that it works perfectly with Aranea's but Vital Crusher debuff. Do not be under the impression that if you have Aranea, you can get away with not pulling for Galoof, because honestly, they are both extremely powerful characters and they work really, really well together. And even if you don't have Aranea, Leo is a perfectly good alternative. That is a great banner. And then the last two there's one banner at the end that I'm not sure is going to be at the end of April or at the beginning of May, so I'm going to go with the visual forecast and say it's in May. But Exdeath and Fran's banners, they are luxury items. Fran and Ash, I would say, is very much a luxury banner. Fran's a really good character. She's got the ranged debuff that Irvin has, but on a much nicer kit. She has framed debuffs. She's got some really strong attacks, and you know, her frame debuff kind of stacks with other things that she does, and she's actually very powerful. But compared to Leo, to Galoof, to Vayne, like, there are other characters that are a little bit more pressing than Fran, so I wouldn't necessarily go all in on her. And Ash is a weird one because she gets 150% overflow on her Arc Blast, which is like the aftermath of her EX, which is completely unnecessary because she's never going to hit it because it's only a 5-hit move. I mean, she might hit a little bit of overflow, but even at 9999 damage, you're hitting 50k. It's not going to go 150% overflow from her max bravery unless something really crazy has happened. But Ash is a good character, again, with paralysis on her EX, but she's not mandatory. She's a total luxury item. Exdeath is a weird one. I actually really want Exdeath, but he's very unique, and I love unique characters. Exdeath is a very strange one because he does gravity. He's like Gravity King, and he has some very, very powerful debuffs that no other character can have. Like, Curse is fantastic because it drains their HP every turn, and literally no other character in the game can do that. But in this point in time, I don't think he's needed. He's a very powerful character, but he could get a burst and an LD literally any time, and there are other characters that you could use up until that point. And Gilgamesh is still pretty rough around the edges, so I wouldn't necessarily pull on him for this banner. I already have Gilgamesh EX. We all know this. Let's just gloss past it. So when it comes to April, I guess the three characters that I would want to purple personally would be Beatrix, Leo, and Vayne. But ideally, I think, honestly, if you're being sensible, Galoof is probably a better pick than for most people than Beatrix, believe it or not. If there's extras, if I have extra resources, then I would really like to do Cecil as well. But I'm personally going to be purpling Beatrix, Leo, and Vayne this on the month of April. Going into May, the first banner we have here is an absolutely extraordinary banner. Lightning becomes an absolute powerhouse with her EX+, and funnily enough is not actually the main draw of this banner. Like, Shadow is Shadow is really nice, but he's not the prize of this banner. Shadow's a character that is like a luxury item, if you will. But if I were to pull on this banner and I got Hope, I would stop pulling immediately because you've already got the prize. Hope is an extraordinary support character after his rework, after his EX realization, or his EX in general. Honestly, this is a banner that should definitely get your tickets and your gems. It's very, very powerful. These banner, I'm not sure that we'll get this banner, but even if we did, it's terrible. And then Poram and Yang is a weird one. Yang is just another damage dealer. He's not bad at it. He's got good AoE damage. He brings nothing to the party though. He's got no auras, no nothing. He's just raw damage. And honestly, in this day and age, you need better than that. So I wouldn't pull on this banner. Poram is another unique character that I think is really cool. She's got like the HP overflow, like the her original kit just gets a major improvement over time, like with her EX realization. But honestly, she comes back with Kuja's like LD Burst, which is a banner that I absolutely plan to pull on anyway. So if I was gonna pull for Poram, I'd probably do it then. So I'd probably skip this banner. This banner depresses me to no end because Caius is one of my favorite characters, but he's complicated, he's technical, he requires a lot more work than most characters to be really strong, and therefore I just don't think he's worthwhile. And then Noel is basically just more of the same. He doesn't actually get a huge amount out of his EX plus or anything like that, but he doesn't gain any attack from his EX realization kit, so there is no attack gain. But his base attack is already very high. So Noel's one of those characters that, like, it's kind of like Sarah, where, like, the EX realization is nice to have, but it's just a continuation of what he's already got. And Noel's kit was already pretty good. But that being said, there are other characters in this month, again, that I think just take a precedence over Noel or Caius, and it's just a sad thing. If you've not checked with my previous video already, this banner is the reason why I would say not to pull for Aerith until now, because it comes back on Diablos' banner. If you already have Aerith, then fantastic. You don't need to be pulling on this banner at all. I already have Kuja, so I probably won't pull on it anyway because he's the other Super Synergy character for Diablos. But Aerith gets significantly better with her EX realization. She's got major party Brave Overflow, which is fantastic. Her Sphere is really good. It grants magic attack plus 15%, which is really strong for a Sphere. She's got strong batteries. She can heal, obviously, really well. If you're lacking in support, then this banner's actually really good. Waka's actually surprisingly strong as well. He brings a lot of party auras, but again, he's more of a luxury item than an absolute necessity. So I think that it's important to kind of discern which characters you must get and which characters you kind of want to get, which is why I refer to some of them as luxuries. This next banner here I think is very strong. Snow is a tank that rivals Zac. He's actually better at tanking than Zac is in some ways, but he's not quite as good at dishing out the damage. He's still very damaging, but he's not quite as up there with Zac, and he does bring something that Zac doesn't do, which is the ability to heal the whole party with his C65 ability. So that's something you might want to bear in mind. And then Sync is improved dramatically with her EX realization kit, but she very much plays a bonus character role to Snow. If you're pulling on this banner, you are pulling for Snow, not Sync. But if you get her, she's kind of cool. And then the last banner I want to talk about for May is going to be Jack and Ramza. Jack's a character that a lot of players talk about as a character they're excited for, and I'm personally not. He's an extraordinary damage dealer. Like, he puts out damage like nothing you've ever seen because he combos his attacks one after another. But he's still a damage dealer, and we don't need more damage dealers necessarily. Ramza is actually very good. It fixes a lot of his issues by having his realization because he gets a lot of overflow on his attacks. He gets a lot more bravery generally. He's got a party-based sphere, which is really nice. Like, when you equip him with a sphere, all of your party gain stats, so that's nice to bear in mind. I'd say this banner was worthwhile if you had neither of these characters. So if you haven't got Ramza or Jack, then this is probably a very good banner. But as someone who already has Ramza, this banner might get a few tickets, and I'll hope to get lucky with Jack because he is actually very good. But he's a damage dealer, and I've got so many damage dealers that I don't necessarily need Jack to do that. So when it came to May, I would say the characters that I personally would like to give the purples to, if I were to pick three, would be Snow, Lightning, and Hope. And if I had leftovers or I got the character easily, I would give Aerith some more resources. Aerith or Ramza, one of the two. And if I got Jack, it would probably be him, but I'm not sure I'm going to pull for Jack, based on the fact that he is a fairly selfish damage dealer. As good a damage dealer as he is, that doesn't bring anything to the party by himself. So I'm trying to go for like team players here, and Lightning becomes more of a team player because she gets Thunder in Peril. Her delay becomes a lot more prevalent. Her unbreak mechanics become a lot more prevalent. She's actually just an absolute powerhouse, and I've seen a lot of people solo a lot of content with Lightning. So she gets the selfish part right. Now, I warn you now, June is going to be an absolute pig for your resources. June and July are going to be awful because there's so many good characters in these months that it's going to be like Sophie's choice trying to pick between them. To pick three of them is going to be really difficult. And the first banner that comes up is Lena and Cypher. Lena actually gets a lot of her problems fixed, like, because she's very, very weak at the moment. People are still using her now because of the Windrake buff, and it's still really great. But, you know, she then gets Party Brave Overflow on her Princess of Tycoon buff, which is fantastic, and we love that. And she becomes a really powerful support unit again. But bizarrely, she's actually a character that I'm probably not going to purple because there's so many good characters. And Cypher is a strong character, and I know of at least one person that's going to read me to filth for not loving Cypher. He's got strong AoE damage, his EX debuff is very strong, but you realistically want to give him a way of debuffing the opponents as soon as you enter the fight. So you pair him up with somebody like Fran or Noctis who come into the fight with their EX realizations and instantly debuff the opponent. So whether it's Point Blank, Warp Strike, or Viera's Punishment, that's going to be really helpful to Cypher if that's a character that you want. This is not a bad banner. There are just much stronger ones later. And the same, unfortunately, goes for Prompto and Freya. Now, Freya is really cool. She's got loads of Brave Overflow with her ability. She's got loads of stuff. Prompto is, in my opinion, still a very weak character. He does go very well with Aranea, though, ironically, because with his Trigger Happy EX, he loves Vital Crusher because it becomes AoE Brave damage, and that's going to help the damage output of Trigger Happy exponentially. Freya's really good, but, like, I mean, I will show you some of these characters that are coming up. Arciella is ridiculous. Alphino, ridiculous. Keese, ridiculous. There's so many characters there that are absolutely insane that you're never going to give Freya a look in, realistically. And speaking of Arciella, unbelievable character. Like, I mean, the only issue I have with her is having watched videos of her being played, her animations take absolutely forever, and that's an issue for me. But fast cast makes it so that your whole party gets, like, bravery refunded after they HP attack, and that's disgusting. Her, you know, her EX actually isn't the main thing you want from her, which is bizarre, but her whole kit is really strong. She actually one of the few characters that works well with less ingots, so that's something that perhaps you can bear in mind when it comes to pulling for her, because she's actually a worthwhile character with just a book or even one ingot. But, I mean, you might want a 3 out of 3 because it's still really good, even if you 3 out of 3 of course. Prish actually gets a significant rework on this banner as well, and her EX hits like an absolute bus, and she gets some imperils going and things like that, but she is very similar to some of the other banners I've spoken about, like Sync. She is very much a bonus character to Arciella. Like, if you get Arciella, stop pulling. Like, unless Prish is a favourite, and I will say this now, if anyone I haven't mentioned is a favourite character of yours, please go for them anyway. I am just using this as a guideline for people, and I'm doing it to help myself more than anything, and hopefully other people will get something out of it as well. So if you have a favourite, then absolutely pull for them. But Prish is ultimately relatively underwhelming, though from what I remember, her sphere is actually very good. And then this next banner is a very interesting one because Fujin EX is actually very, very strong. She provides Wind Imperil, Wind Enchant, really good auras. She's just a very strong character. Cyan is still pretty rough, though, unfortunately. If you're going in on this banner, bear in mind that Cyan is definitely... or people will purple Cyan for memes, more than likely. But from my opinion, I think it is sensible not to put your ingots into Cyan. And then... it's such a shame because Vanille's EX Sphere is still one of the best in the game. So if you wanted to get this from that, then great. I actually already have Vanille, but I'm probably going to pull on this banner because I really want Fujin because she's a favourite and she's really good. I will just prepare myself for the copious numbers of Cyan dupes I'm going to get along the way. But after that, I believe this is just a triple banner. This isn't a bad banner, actually. Like, if this one comes around as well... Setsa's probably the best thing there. Balthea I actually really like. I have all 3 of these, so I don't need to worry about this banner. But it's not a bad banner. I just wouldn't pull on it compared to the ones around it. This one, I absolutely have to have Alphino. I have to have Alphino. He has got really strong Brave HP attacks with Obsidian, with his Obsidian Carbuncle. Really strong. He gets so many skill uses. It's really powerful because his Brave and HP attack become really, really good. So he lasts forever, basically. His EX gives him really good damage output, which he didn't really have before. He's also one of the best support characters in the game for a long while, and I honestly believe that Alphino is a must-have in my personal opinion. If you already have Ida EX, then this is... I mean, I would still pull on this banner, because while Ida is very strong, she's very much playing second fiddle to Alphino. So I would personally pull on this banner even if you already had Ida, because I think Alphino's that good. But upsettingly, the two banners that follow Alphino are also very strong as well. You've got Keese, who is busted. Straight up bonkers, insane character. Think Lael on steroids. Because not only does he have the launch capabilities, he gives the launch capabilities to other members of his party and has an HP plus attack during chase sequences, which battery the other two party members. And that's not even all he does. He's just got massive speed reduction auras. He's just an absolute powerhouse. You'd be absolutely remiss to not pull for Keese. Zidane, again, the problem with this month is there are so many banners with one busted character and one letdown character, and Zidane, unfortunately, is a letdown character, because the problem with Zidane is everything that Zidane can do is actually really good, but Keese does it better, like in pretty much every way apart from the debuffs. Keese is just a better version of Zidane, unfortunately, so there's very much a first and second prize on that banner. And then Cloud of Darkness is a character that I would like to get. Kefka's realization here is actually very powerful. Like, he gets HP attacks on his Meteor, which make it 10 times better. He gets huge damage output. He gets massive debuffs that are really powerful. And, like, his blind and his HP signers are still really valuable. Kefka is a very good character from this point onwards. Cloud of Darkness is also very powerful. Cloud of Darkness is actually very strange in that her skill 2 is actually stronger than her EX, but you have to build up stacks to make it that way. But she also has delay mechanics. She's got an aura-based poison, which is very unique. So, I mean, I think this banner's really powerful, and I wouldn't want to skip it unless I absolutely had to, but if the banners before her were really nasty to me, I would skip it. If the banners beforehand were nice to you, because believe me, between May, June, July, and April, there's so many banners that are really powerful. There's not a lot of room to save up, which is really depressing. And then July is not much better. But going over the three characters that I probably would have purpled for June, I would pick Keese, Alphino, and Arciela. And I'd also would have, if I get extras, then I'll probably go for Fujin. Cloud of Darkness, however, would also be a very good pick. Like, they're, you know, Fujin and Cloud of Darkness are both very cool, but I think you'd be absolutely remiss to not do Keese and at least either Alphino or Arciela, because they are both extraordinary support characters. And then going into July, we get more busted support characters because we have Aphmau, who is utterly revolting. She buffs every stat. She's got huge longevity. She's just so powerful. Like, she does everything. She's already good with her 35 alone, but her EX just pushes her to a new level where she's just bonkers. And following Alphino and Arciela, there's just something about, there's something about these MMO support characters that's doing really, really well. But again, the problem with this banner is that Lion is decent, but a little bit of a letdown compared to Aphmau. So, I mean, even as somebody who has Lion EX, I will undoubtedly pull for Aphmau. I think she's absolutely fantastic. The only thing that makes me think about doing it differently is that if I were to consider getting the Mog passes, which would be coming fairly soon after this, which is like a premium VIP, but it's only benefits that are sort of like, you get like an EX every couple of months, you get a burst you get burst tokens and stuff like that, and it's something that comes out with the burst era. So maybe something that people could consider is to skip this banner in order to then use the Mog Pass EX tokens on Aphmau to save yourself from having to pull on this banner. It's an option at the very least, especially considering that this banner with Eldnash and Garnet is arguably one of the best banners to pull on up until the burst era. Both of these characters are absolutely mad powerful. Basically, Garnet renders Rydia completely redundant, because literally anything that Rydia has a few benefits, but nowhere near as many as Garnet does with her realization, because she's like a fantastic Imperil Enchanter for two different elements. She does it for thunder and water. Her EX becomes really powerful and gets a gorgeous reanimation, and it involves Alexander, and anyone who knows me knows that Alexander from FF9 is actually my favourite thing in the entirety of Final Fantasy, so I would be an idiot to not pull on this banner, and I haven't gotten Garnet up until this point, so this banner is mad. And Eldnash is actually worth mentioning as well, because he's very complex, because he has like a shield around him that you expend to then make his skills more powerful, and he makes a really strong combo where he gets like warp and moves straight after enemies have moved, and then Terra makes it so if they're targeting him, they just their turns get cancelled, and that includes attacks that target your entire party. So honestly, this banner is arguably one of the best in the game. Cater, people are going to pull for Cater for the memes. People are going to pull for Cater because #Justice for Cater actually happens on this banner. But as somebody who plans to already have Penelo, or who already has Penelo, and plans to already have Leo by this point, I personally do not think that this banner is worth going in for Cater alone. Some people have used Cater to solo some DE missions, and that is a reason for some people to want to pull for her. But as someone who's not really that fussed about soloing content, because I have I'm very lucky and I have a large array of EX pluses that I can take to DE, Cater's just not enough for me. Raijin and Saz, however, is an extraordinary banner as well. They're coming with Alexander, so you'll get loads of resources for this. Raijin has similar party support to Fujin, but he actually adds paralysis on top of it and a really strong sphere. I didn't mention it with Fujin, but half the reason I want Fujin is for her sphere, which is like a speed down aura, and I plan to put it on Kefka, because Kefka can reduce speed by up to 80%, so the speed downs get crazy. Part of the reason I want Kefka is you can have so much fun playing around with how you build his spheres and stuff, because there's so many things that work with him. But Raijin actually has like mass paralysis on top of Fujin's kit, which is really strong, as well as having the Thunder Enchant, Thunder and Peril, really good. Saz is also extremely powerful. You could argue that this banner is up there with Eldnash and Garnet for being one of the best banners there is, because it's just insanely good. You get double Brave Overflow when it comes to Saz as well, through attack boost and his D65, so you get a nice amount of Brave Overflow for the whole party. The only problem that you're going to want to watch out for with Saz is similar to Penelo. In fact, Saz is very similar to Penelo in a lot of ways. The thing you're going to want to watch out for is balancing your buffs, because you've only got 6 slots, and he takes up a lot of them with his attack boost, so bear that in mind when you plan to use Saz. And then around the same sort of time, we should be seeing... Dark Knight Cecil gets his EX+, and it's cool, but it's still relatively underwhelming compared to everything else. And this banner with Tidus and Rosa, it's always... The secondary banners, when it comes to summon boards, are never worth pulling on, if you ask me. Charlotta's banner, honestly, you could probably skip it. If you already have Charlotta, you should definitely skip it. Rydia is not worth it. Garnet is a much better investment for you, in my opinion, at the very least. And then Charlotta doesn't get a huge amount from her EX realization, but she doesn't need to, because mechanically she's already very powerful, very similar to Vayne. Doesn't need to get huge amounts of stuff because she's already insanely powerful. Trey, really powerful trap character, kind of like an evolution of the Emperor. Lethal Arrow insta-breaks characters, which is one of his skills. And then Quistis' EX Plus is also very powerful. She gets batteries on practically everything she does, including her EX. She gets very strong party overflow. I probably won't pull on this banner, which I know is probably heresy to a lot of people, because I already have Quistis. I imagine that some of these banners that have come just before will absolutely hammer my resources, and the Burst era will come up straight after this. And now... But Trey is really good, and I really want to pull on it. So this one is very much something that I will have to wait and see how it goes when it comes to this month, because this comes to the end of that month. So this is the last few banners we get before the Burst era. So if I were to pick 3 characters to purple out of this, because from what I gather, the number of ingots and stuff we receive over the next 9 months actually doesn't change. It's going to stay very consistent to what we have. So basically, stick to the 3 per month rule. And if you get extras, fantastic. That's how I plan to do it. And if I were to pick 3 for July, I'd probably pick Eldnash, Afmal, and probably either Raijin or Garnet. Or Trey, if I get him. Or Saz. Yeah, there's a problem. There are 6... See, this is the problem. There are 6 characters that I want to EX Plus in July, and I can only really afford to do 3 of them. Maybe 4. And there's just too many good ones. So of those characters, you can make your own decisions on how you feel about that. Luckily, from this point onwards, it should get a little bit easier because with LDs and bursts, LDs don't require ingots or anything. They just require power stones. And bursts, they kind of come as they are. So, and a lot of them are going to come out for characters that a lot of us already have the EXs for. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So you might be able to backlog some of these, particularly a character like Trey, because he does stay good for quite a while. And then moving on from this is where things are going to start to get interesting. So there's another banner here with Beatrix, Yuri, and Edge that we're probably not going to get. But this is where the burst era starts. And you're going to think I'm crazy. Don't pull for Squall. I know that 90% of people, including myself most likely, are going to get hung up in the hype of new mechanics, LDs are new, bursts are new, oh my god, I want to have it. Squall is quite easily the weakest burst in the game, but it doesn't take much time for that one to get eclipsed, so try not to get caught up in getting his burst. If you absolutely must try to pull for it, my recommendation, and this goes for most characters with bursts as well, is to pull for their LD in their banner. So their LD is one of the new weapon types they get, and then a burst is another with a much weaker sort of rate on it, but you can pull for it across multiple banners. So go for one of the banners that has his LD on it, whichever one is most applicable to you, and then move on and then pull for their burst on a different banner. Unless, of course, you're like really heavily into it and you're desperate to get the burst and you need the EX as well, then that's going to be how that goes. But personally, if I were to pull for Squall's banner, Squall's burst, I would go for the banner that had Auron on it, which is this one here. But because Auron does get a little bit better after his EX plus, but still not great, unfortunately. And you know that one comes with this banner comes with Squall's EX, Steiner's EX, and Auron's EX. Or in this one, you have Gilgamesh's EX, Tifa's EX, or Kate Sith's. Neither of these banners are particularly great at this point in time. They're way too old, and Squall's burst just isn't worth it. Squall's LD does fix a lot of his problems though, but if I were to pull for Squall's burst, I would absolutely be doing it on a Mitadelian's banner. But quickly covering Garland. Garland actually gets a lot from his LD. It saves his ability uses significantly. But the thing to bear in mind with Garland, and this goes for a couple of other characters as well, is he doesn't have a burst on this banner. And they have, or Square Enix has already said that all antagonists and protagonists will eventually get a burst. So Garland will get one eventually. So there is going to be a much better time for you to pull for Garland's LD than this banner. But if you get it easily, then it will serve you really well. A Mitadelian's banner, however, is really good. Like, a Mitadelian is an incredible friend unit. Like, better than Leo, better than Aranea, better than Quistis, better than all of it. Because what she does is erases turns altogether. She just makes it so that the next turn they just don't get it. It just doesn't happen. And that's an extraordinary thing to have. I will probably pull on this banner because I think that she's just insanely powerful. And if you're going to pull for Squall's burst, this would be the banner to do it on. Shantotto's cool, but she's not the strongest burst out there. But I'm actually personally looking to pull on this banner here. Not because I want Shantotto burst. If I happen to get Shantotto LD and burst, then I would obviously be very happy about it. Because the most important sort of relics within these banners are actually the LDs, not the bursts. Bursts are a luxury item for now. There are a couple of characters where you really want their burst, but by and large, it's the LD you care about. And the burst is like, oh my god, I got this shiny new thing. But bear in mind that they're across multiple banners, so you just have to keep that in mind. I want to put on this banner for Alize, because Alize gets her realization, and honestly, my biggest regret in this game so far is not getting Alize the first time round. Not because she's busted, but because I absolutely adore the character and I wanted to go with Alphino. And her EX Plus is actually very strong and long-lasting. She works very well. She's got Mass Imperil, she's got a really nice sphere. There's a lot going for Alize that I really appreciate. And Shantotto's like got paralysis from her LD, which is really strong, but her burst again is not why you're pulling for her. Ultimisia, same thing here goes for Garland. Really nice LD. It enables her to like instantly get her stacks going, so you're going to open with it so that she gets off like much quicker. But she doesn't have a burst on this banner. Shantotto does. So, honestly, I would leave this banner. Maybe throw a few tickets at it if you've got them, because at this point in time, if you've got resources by the end of this, then all power to you, because I've got a lot of resources, and I reckon I'm going to struggle at this point. But I wouldn't necessarily pull on this banner, because you don't need to. And then Desh is actually a very interesting character. Desh will actually bring along sort of like a weird electrical field that gives you a chance of paralyzing your opponents like every turn. So he's kind of like, and he's got like a magic shield and a physical shield, so he's quite defensive support. The best way I can think to describe Desh is that he's like an evolution of Kryl, but he's used quite a lot, even in LUFENIA missions up until now, because he's actually just very strong in general. I actually really appreciate his banner. I think he's very good. And then still within this month, still within that same month, we're going to start to see bits from Varn. And then Varn is actually a very cool character. His LD is extremely powerful because it makes the next 3 turns he has not take up his skill uses. His burst, however, is completely pointless unless you have his LD. So basically what you want his burst for is a free use of his LD. That's what you mainly want it for. But Gabranth is actually a really cool character as well, who comes on this banner here, which is one of the story chapter missions. Gabranth only has an EX in this particular banner, so I actually enjoy this banner because it's a relatively low cost banner for a really interesting new character that has really strong debuffs, really strong re-break mechanics. He's a character that gets overlooked an awful lot when it comes to the JP side of things, but I actually think that he's quite a good investment purely because of how easy he is comparatively to get. I should also mention that when bursts come around, then the rates start shuffling up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to get EXs, LDs, that kind of thing. It's still difficult, but it's not as difficult, and off banners get cut away, which is an absolute godsend, because anyone who's ever watched me pull on stream or anything knows how much they infest my pulls, and it's infuriating. But at this point in time, so this, I reckon, should be the end of September, or, it should be the end of August. So we should, if I were to pull on characters here, or invest in characters here, I would say Amitatelion is an absolute must. Gabranth is a character I would possibly invest in, and Alize. But by and large, if there was a month where you could save, it's probably this one. Desh is a really strong character as well. I wouldn't overlook him. If anything, I'm only going for Alize because I love Alize. Realistically, I think Desh is probably better for you to invest in than either Alize or Gabranth, but also slightly more difficult for you to invest in. But then, I think that this is probably the easiest month to skip a fair few banners if you're able to. And then going into September, we will see Machina's, there we go, we've got Machina's event there. Now, Machina is really cool, but he's ultimately not necessary. If you were going to pull for Varn Burst, I think that Varn's own banner with his LD and Gabranth is one of the stronger times to do it. If you ask me, I think that it's just a much more interesting banner. And that's the only other banner he actually has for this time in the month. And usually, most characters with a burst will get like 4 banners, whereas you actually don't with Varn. So I think that Varn's own banner with Gabranth is a better time to do it. Machina's fine. It does fix a lot of his problems because he gets a long string of attacks. But his EX is still fairly pointless because he can't lock enemies onto himself, and I still find that to be a problem. Then you get... there is another banner with Varn's burst on it, and it's Leon and Vivi's Awakening. Leon starts with his EX up, which is possibly really powerful, but I honestly wouldn't touch this banner unless you didn't have Arciella at this point. But I'm pulling on Arciella early, so I don't have to pull on this one later, because I think that it's relatively underwhelming, particularly considering what comes after this banner. Noctis is broken at this point. Noctis's LD and burst are unbelievably powerful. His burst effect, so what the burst does is it sets up a party-wide effect. Whenever a party member attacks, he jumps in and does an attack after them. It's disgusting. But with this banner, I would recommend pulling for his LD on this banner and then stopping, because there is another banner with Noctis's burst on it that is also very powerful, because basically, like I said, the bursts are split across multiple banners. If you are able to, get the LD from Noctis's banner and then stop, because then you're going to be able to do it from some of the others. You get, Cecil and Irvin are pretty good for the event because you've got Odin. This is on Ultimate Odin, which is a godsend because you're going to need those resources at that point. But he's just an exceptional character. You have to get him. Honestly, if you're going to pick any burst to go after, make it Noctis's. But if you are going for that burst, I would recommend doing so on Barsh's LD. Barsh gets a phenomenal rework that makes him probably the best tank in the game. Certainly at this point in time, you can still get Noctis's burst from this banner. He's just an extremely good. He's so good at tanking. He really reduces the amount of damage you take, the HP damage you take. His damage output gets really powerful as well. If you're gonna pull for Noctis's burst, if you didn't get it while pulling for his LD, do it during Barsh's LD banner. Nine's not a bad character either, to be fair. Nine is quite similar to Warrior of Light in that he puts the shields up and things like that. And he's got very strong auras, but he only really works against fights where you have multiple enemies. He works very well in those fights, but he's not going to work in every fight like Barsh would, which is why I would recommend going for Noctis's Burst on Barsh's banner, not Nine's. But if you got Barsh's banner, like LD quite early, like quite quickly, or his kit quite quickly, you could consider holding out for Nine, because Nine's kind of overlooked, but he is still actually a very good character. Past that, we've then got another busted character to follow, which which should take us through to October? That should be October our time. And then, actually, so before I do that, I'll go to September and talk about the characters that I would want to do in September. I'd probably just do Noctis and Barsh. I would probably just do Noctis and Barsh. If I got Nine nice and early, then great, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it, purely because October is going to be absolute hell. October brings us Ardyn, who is arguably as broken as Noctis is. Ardyn can't die, basically. His LD puts his health... It's either his EX or his LD, I forget which one's which. Puts his health to 0 and gives him a buff that says he can't die for the next 9 turns. It's his LD, because you're going to use it 4 times. And the reason you want his burst is because, well, it's really powerful, but it also gives you a free use of his LD, which means that you've got 5 uses of it, or 4 uses of it in total. He's just not going to die, and he does very similar things to Noctis with his Warp Strike and things like that. He's got lots of very strong free turn mechanics. He's just very, very good. But again, this is a banner where you're going to want to pull for his LD and then switch banner afterwards due to there being very, very strong banners around the same sort of time. And he's got 2 banners that you could pull on. He's quite unique, actually, because he's really the only debuting burst characters that comes with another character that has their LD, which will be Rinoa. And Rinoa gets a full rework here and becomes really quite good again. Her EX Plus was fairly underwhelming, but her LD is actually very good. But I still wouldn't pull for Ardyn's Burst on this banner, and I certainly wouldn't pull for it on Kimahri's LD, because Kimahri is still pretty rough around the edges when it comes to this. He's just not strong, unfortunately. He does get a lot of his problems fixed, like he's got a lot more damage. But when you're looking at Rinoa and then Edward, who we'll come to in a moment, Kimahri just looks duff. And for fans of Kimahri, I'm really apologetic that I say that as bluntly as that, but he's just not great comparatively. Edward, on the other hand, is very interesting. Another very strong support character. I think that Edward's banner is probably the strongest banner to pull for Ardyn's Burst on. His LD comes with a very interesting mechanic, which is sleep, which puts enemies to sleep, and then they can't do anything until they are attacked, until a certain number of turns pass, but the ticker goes down if you attack them. And that's actually really life-saving, and he's got a lot of strong party buffs to go along with it. So honestly, I think that Edward is a banner that I would probably pull on. And then we come up to Kefka's LD and Burst. Now, Kefka he's a really strange one. Some people say he's not the strongest burst in the world. Some people say he's absolutely insane. I am a fan of Kefka, so I will probably pull for him, regardless of what other people say. Where I'll pull for Kefka is another matter. I think that, if I were to try and get Freya's EX, because I know I said earlier that Freya's EX was not very good to pull for at that time, I think that this banner is probably better for it, because you might get Kefka's LD and Burst, you might get Freya EX. I mean, you might get Seymour or Lise EX, which is really not great, unfortunately. The other banner has Aerith and Shadow on it, so that's also an option. It depends. Like, I like that they release 2 banners when it comes to a new burst character, because like I don't really want to pull for Kefka's EX because I already have it. But equally, I don't really want to pull for Seymour or Lise, so you know you have to kind of weigh up your options with that. But again, so this is definitely a banner where if you're going to go for Kefka's full kit, go for his LD and then switch banner. Emperor's LD is really interesting. It basically allows him to set off his own traps whenever he wants. But I think they've tried to design it so that Kefka's kit doesn't screw him over. But you have to still be able to apply the debuffs with Emperor before you can set them off. And Kefka brings up an entire bar's worth of debuffs at this point. So I'm not sure about that. And again, like Ultimisia and Garland, he doesn't have a burst on this banner. So he will get one eventually. And I will be very, very excited for what he does. Because as much as I hate to say it, the Emperor banner is probably not great to pull on when it comes to Kefka's group of banners. I actually think that there are better ones. Strago's banner is a funny one. Strago is like a character that has like dual casting mechanics and can insta-break characters or enemies as long as their bravery is even, which is a very, very strange thing to do. And with it being a dual casting thing, he struggles to cap his bravery because he's got quite a lot of max bravery, so he struggles to kind of keep up with it. And this banner is a definite skip if you have Realm. If you don't have Realm, this banner is actually really good because she completely trivializes multiple events from this point onwards. Her EX realization is actually very powerful. She does a lot more damage, which is realistically all she actually needed to do because the sketch debuff is so powerful because she could just go, yep, my turn again. Oh, look, my turn again. And then she's just absolutely wrecking face with her attacks. So in this particular situation, I'd say, I mean, this will take us to the end of October. So the characters that I would recommend, Arden is a must-have. I will absolutely be pulling for Arden without a shadow of a doubt. I will probably be pulling for his LD and then switching banner over to Edward. It's hard. I mean, those banners will... One thing that's nice to remember as well is that all of the characters' banners are usually live at one time. So you can kind of wait and gauge how you want to pull for it at the time. So that if you get something early, you can switch banner. So that is quite a nice thing. So with this particular situation, I'll probably pull for Arden's LD first in his own banner. And then switch over to Edward's banner. And then come back to Renoa if I get Edward quickly. And then with Kefka's banner, I would pull for Kefka. Because I love Kefka, but his banners are kind of crap, to be honest. I'll try and get his LD from one of his banners. Which one at the time, I don't know. And then I'll probably try and get Realm alongside Kefka's burst. That's how I'll probably do October. October's a murky one. Now, we're getting near the end now, guys. We're nearly there. And the first character that we have coming up is Warrior of Light. Now, Warrior of Light is very interesting. He gets a big rework, and a big important thing to note about Warrior of Light's banner is this will be the dawn of the LUFENIA difficulty, which is the 200 and I think it's 200 difficulty event. So they're harder than Chaos, and they've also got a lot of events going on as well. I did fail to mention actually at the beginning of burst events as well. They start introducing synergy challenges, which are events where you can only bring synergy characters with you. So that may play into things when it comes to your pulling capabilities because you're gonna want, like, you get burst tokens and things that you can save up and spend on a burst weapon later on. So that's something you might want to bear in mind when you're pulling for these characters. I've tried to base my pulls based on characters I already have because it's basically chaos difficulty, so EX Plus will get you through a lot of it. So as long as you've got 5 characters. You've got the 3 characters on the banner itself, you've got the burst character, and you've got the lost chapter character. So there's a little bit more leeway than you might think, but do bear that in mind when you're going in for some of these burst era banners. That's why they've kind of made it as well so that you can get the burst character on multiple sides. So hopefully that will give you a bit of insight into that as well. But you also get LUFENIA difficulty with Warrior of Light's banner. Now, Warrior of Light has very strong HP damage reduction as well as bravery damage. So that's something that makes Warrior of Light's rework really bring him up to speed. And his LD and burst are actually very good. Again, some people will tell you that like Warrior of Light is kind of skippable because Barsh is really good, whereas other people will tell you that even if you have Barsh, you should absolutely pull for Warrior of Light. I probably will pull for Warrior of Light in some fashion or another. I mean, I know I've said like I'll probably pull for most of the burst characters, but equally I don't expect to get them all. The characters at this point that I would like to have Noctis, Arden, and yeah, no, that's actually it. They're the two and Kefka. They're the three that I would actually really like to have. I would quite happily go without Varn, Squall, or Shantotto. So there's 3 out of 3. So, four out of 7 at this point that I would like to have. But Warrior of Light, equally, like his banners come with Thancred and Laguna's EX pluses. So if I go for a banner with Warrior of Light, it will be that one. Laguna actually gets a nice amount from his rework. He's definitely stronger than Thancred, but I wouldn't say he was necessary. He's just good enough. Whereas Thancred is still kind of crap. Unfortunately, he's still a little bit on the underwhelming side. But the other banner has Sync, Agrius, and Ida on it, and I will probably have Ida with Alphino. I might have Sync because I'll probably try for Snow, and I already have Agrius. So basically, pick the between the two banners based on what you already have is my advice for that. And then both of these banners are actually very good. Eight's LD weapon gives him Taunt, or gives him Lock, which is exactly what he needs, and he actually counters multiple times, and it makes him infinitely stronger. But I mean, 8 is a character that's really strong, but the character that's new that comes after him, I really desperately want. So I'm not sure if 8 is going to be the character for me, purely because Kurosame is there. And if I have a favourite character from Type 0, it's Kurosame. I think he's absolutely legendary. I read the manga that had the Tonberry in it, and I love Kurosame. And he's busted, which helps, because he's kind of like an alternate to Charlotta, where instead of providing a buff that makes it so that your party deals more damage, he provides a debuff called Ice Prison that levels up, that makes it so that the enemy takes more HP damage. And that levels up to 50% more HP damage, which adds up like crazy. So I think that Kurosame is a character that I would really love to have. So if I were to go in for Warrior of Light's group, I would probably go for Warrior of Light's group that included his LD, Laguna, and Thancred. And then I would go into Kurosame's banner, most likely. I will do a quick overview at the end of the banners that I will most likely pull on, just so that you guys are aware all in one shot where I'm going to go with it. After Kurosame, I think, I'm not going to pull on this banner. Nah. Oh, yeah, right. As if I would not pull on Kuja's LD and burst weapon. I will pity that burst if I have to. It has Trance Kuja on it. I will pity it. I will sacrifice a goat to it if I have to. I will have that weapon no matter what the cost. Also helps that Kuja becomes really good after he gets his LD and burst. He's got like a Holy Imperil aura and a Holy Enchant for the party. His damage becomes huge and he becomes a party-based character. I'd say he's the next best character after, well, one of the 2 best characters after Noctis and Arden. The other one coming after Kuja. Because he just provides so much party sort of just buffs, and he just provides so much support while dealing this ridiculous amount of damage. And like Ring Holy gets splash damage, his rework is really good. He's just extraordinarily powerful. I just wish his banners were a little bit better. Like, I mean, if I were to pull for him, I already have his EX, so I'll pull on the banner like this one here that has Papalimo, Poram, and Rydia. And if I got any of those characters, I'd be happy with it because I could use them in a synergy fight. You know, like, I'm not that fussed about Rydia. I'm not that fussed about Poram. I may already have Papalimo, I'm not sure. And if I don't, then if I get it from this, then fantastic. But I will have Kuja's LD and his burst. But if I get his LD early, I will switch banner. And either of these banners are actually pretty good. Like, Gao gets leveled up so that he has, like, AoE counters. So it's still a really good option if you're going for Kuja's burst. Terra's still kind of meh. And, you know, the other characters on the banner are just like, nah, you know, it doesn't matter. I just want Kuja's burst, and if I got Gao stuff, then great, but I'm not actually going to go for Gao because Gladiolus comes after him. all of the new characters from Burst era onwards tend to be like stupid powerful. Gladio, I think, is the best option to go for if you're going to pull for Kuja's Burst, or even if you're not pulling for Kuja's Burst, though you should be. It's still a really good character. You can get Vayne EX Plus from it as well, which is handy. Sabin's on the banner. You know, it's not bad for that. But Gladio himself is like a cover tank, like an evolution from Galoof. He can reduce all damage to 0 to himself for using his Royal Guard. It's really, really strong. So if I were to pull at this point, so this is covering November now, I think that I would like to pull for Warrior of Light, Kurasame, because bear in mind that I'm sticking to my 3 rule because, like I said, LDs don't cover ingots, and I already have Warrior of Light's EX maxed out. So I'd say Warrior of Light and his LD. So if I got Laguna or Thancred along the way, then I'd be happy about it. And then Kurasame, and then Kuja alongside these 3 characters here, and then Gladio. That would be my... There's 4 banners there, but this is a particularly strong month for me because I love both Warrior of Light and Kuja. So, I mean, Kuja's sitting in the bottom of my screen. How can I not pull for Kuja Burst? It would be insane if I didn't. So that now brings us up to the last month that we have as reference for December, for JP, which is December. Lightning is broken again. And this is actually the debut of the level 80s. So this is where you can start learning to call assist characters in, which is quite cool because it's actually like a nice throwback to Dissidia Duodecim because you had assists and things like that in there. Her damage is absolutely exceptional. And I would, again with this banner, just like most of the burst banners, pull for her LD on one of these banners. So, I mean, neither of them are fantastic, to be honest, but you don't care. You just want Lightning's LD because her LD is busted, her burst is busted, but you could pull for her burst on a different banner that is equally busted and is probably like the most recent absolute must-have character. And that character is not Camlanaut, but Camlanaut is still very good. At this point, Camlanaut gets a lot of his problems fixed. Like, his LD allows him to keep hold of his buffs for much longer so that he's not having to do quite so much work, and he gets like free turns after his Brave Attack Plus so that he can immediately run into Glassification Plus and get the paralysis. He's actually very good after this point, so do bear that in mind. Like, Camlanaut is not bad when he gets his LD, he's actually very strong. Reno, however, is really good. Reno has delay mechanics. He has Thunder Imperil as a framed debuff. And no, it does not stack with other Thunder Imperils, in case you were wondering. But his Pyramid attack that he gets from his LD basically makes it so they can't do anything. Like, until like certain specifications are met, your opponent's just stuck. Like, if you've played FF7 and you fought Reno, and you remember at the top of the Midgard turn you used Pyramid and it was really sodding annoying, well, now you can do that to them, and it's great. So if you're going to pull for Lightning, I would say that pull for her LD on one of her banners, whichever one applies to you best, and then pull for her Burst on Reno's banner, because hopefully you'll get Reno stuff along the way. And Lightning is... When I said that Kuja was one of the best after Arden and Noctis, I'd actually say Lightning was begrudgingly slightly better. But I'm fine with that, because weapon skins should be out for us by this point, and I mean, I think her Burst is hideous. And I have her costume from way back when. And I don't plan on buying any more costumes, in case you were wondering. So I will have Overture as her skin. I will have her looking exactly as she does right now. And she is Goddess, so it's fine. Sephiroth, I've actually heard, is fairly underwhelming when it comes to his Burst and LD. However, I think that you could pull for Sephiroth because of his banner that has Saz and Snow on it. If you're not pulling for Snow straight away, you could consider waiting until here. Because if you've got Zack, Snow's banner is a lot less appealing. But Saz is on here as well, and that's a really strong... It's a generally strong banner. His Burst mechanic is actually very good, because what it does is, for the following 3 turns after his Burst has gone off, every turn, all your enemies' bravery becomes 1. No matter whether they're broken or they're at stupid amounts of bravery, it just becomes 1. So you can quite easily like just continuously break characters, or you could use characters that use like free turn mechanics. So like Jekt is part of his banner, so that's a good example. Things like that. So you can really abuse it. But apparently, compared to Lightning, Noctis, Kuja, Arden, he's actually fairly underwhelming. So perhaps like this is finally a point where you can save up a bit. Sephiroth's always a funny character, because Sephiroth always looks really busted, and then you put loads of resources to him, and then you kind of regret it. Well, at least I have done most times that I've done it with Sephiroth. But he's a consideration. If he's a favourite, he's certainly not going to do you wrong, at the very least. And then finally, well, I'm actually going to mention one more banner after this one, because we do actually know what Rude does at this point. But Kieran is actually a very strong character after he gets his LD, because his LD stops him from losing his drops of Myrrh, which makes a much better character out of him. So he's actually very viable at that point. And, I mean, you could try and get Sephiroth's Burst through Kieran's event, or Rude. Rude is actually a very strong healer slash monk, so he like does a lot of damage, but he heals your party with practically everything he does, and he provides some really strong party auras as well. Like, that banner's not listed here right now, but Rude is actually very good as well. But honestly, after the gauntlet, for me, at the very least, of Warrior of Light, Kuja, Lightning, Kurasame, Gladio, Reno, if you've got resources by the time Sephiroth comes around, then you've got much better luck than I have. But that does take us up to date with all of these banners. So that's a long old list of banners there for us to look at for over the course of the year. For the rest of the year, that's going to take us to. But to go over quickly, and finally let's finish the video off in a nice place. We're going to go off of the characters that I will personally be planning to purple or pull for within the next 6 to 9 months. So in April, it's going to be Beatrix, Leo, and Vayne, and I will give a special mention to Galoof and Cecil, and I think they're very good as well. In May, it's going to be Snow, Lightning, and Hope, with special mentions to Jack and Ramza and Aerith. In June, it's going to be Keese, Alfino, and Arciela. I may, however, consider switching one of the maybe consider switching Arciela if her animations are that damn long, to Fujin, and I would also like to mention Cloud of Darkness here. In July, it's going to be Eldnash, Afmau, and Garnet, Trey, Saz, Raijin. There's too many characters in July. There's too many. But all of those characters are very, very good. Just pick 3 of them and you'll be fine. August is going to be a Mid-Italian, Gabranth, and Alize for me. But I would highly recommend Desh to a lot of players as well. In September, it's probably just going to be Noctis and Barsh. But if I get Barsh quickly, then I may consider going for 9. And then in October, it's going to be Ardyn's LD, and then Edward. And then if I pull for Kefka's Burst, it will be on his own banner, and then Strago's, just so I can get Realm. And then, although actually thinking about it, with Realm, I might actually have EX tokens to switch out for that, so I might actually just pull for Emperor LD at that point. November, it's going to be Wal's LD and Kurasame, and then Kuja's LD and Gladiolus. And then finally, in December, it's going to be Lightning's LD and Reno. And then that's probably it, I think. Depends how Sephiroth performs in the next few weeks. But that will I mean, to be honest, that's a lot of banners for me to pull on. There's a lot of things that my resources are going to go on, and I'm not sure if my resources are going to hold out for it. So that is going to take us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching today. As I've said before, don't forget to check out all of my social media links. And of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia news. I have actually been streaming a lot of War of the Visions today, and I will hopefully do a bit more with it now that I've actually re-rolled an account I'm happy with. So if you wanted to come and check that out, and some Opera Omnia gameplay, then definitely come and find me on Twitch as well. Once again, thank you very much for sticking with this video. I know it's a long one, but I know it's something that you guys have requested, and I hope that I've delivered in the best way that I can. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Take care.